Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Revival of America podcast. This is Jenny. I'm the owner and the host of the Revival of America. Today, we have Derek Johnson in the house, everybody. So please feel free if you guys have a no, I'm sorry, guys. That's part of my PSAs all the time. With Derek Johnson, we all kind of know how that goes. If we can get to some questions, guys, we will. He is traveling back from New York, so he's going to be on the road. And there's a lot happening. So I would just love for Derek kind of to just kind of roll with it, how he does, and kind of tie everything in together. Because he always does, everybody. So some of you get frustrated with that, but at the end of the day, you have to understand he tells us how it started, where the middle part is, and how we got here. So it's all laws and orders, guys. It's the operation, and still a lot of people don't understand the operation part of it. And I always say, once you learn the operation, and what that all means, and how it had to be this way, and and go the way that it's going, then you'll understand why we're going through what we're going through, and that it is an operation. So questions, we'll see. But like I said, Derek is traveling back from New York, and so we will just I would like him to just kind of roll with everything from the White House dinner, what happened on Saturday, to what we're seeing with the King, to there's so much happening, guys. I just don't even know where to begin. It's my birthday week, and I'm taking a little bit of a breather. But at the end of the day, I'm trying to catch up, and that's exactly it's trying to catch up has been a bit challenging. But anyway, guys. So hang tight. If we can get to questions, we will. Also, to everybody, we are being listened to in over 100 countries. So if you come into the podcast late, or you want to share with a family or a friend the replay, you're more than welcome to go follow the podcast on the podcast hosts, which are iHeartRadio, Spotify, Anchor, Apple, Google, Breaker, PocketCast, Podbean, Riverside, Amazon Music. My social medias are Jenny Jeread Facebook, at Jenny_Jeread X, at JJeread Rumble, at JJeread True Social, at JJeread Instagram, the Revival of America right here on Telegram, and the Revival of America over on YouTube. And I want to say hello to X. We are streaming and Rumble, but tonight, everybody, this is the first night we will be streaming live through to X. So this is kind of exciting to see how this goes. But hello, Rumble. Glad you guys are all here. So I'm super excited to see how this goes. And everybody, if you have a question for me, I'm trying to centralize everything, because many of you have questions regarding Phil McConnell and his books, or just how he's doing, John Baxter and his anti-aging medbed, Rick Anson, whatever it may be. Please email me at therevivalofamerica@yahoo.com. I'm trying to centralize everything, guys, because I do have a day gig, and that takes precedence. So email me there, and I'll get back to you with hopefully an answer. If I can answer your question. If not, I'll let you know I can't answer your question. So email me there again, therevivalofamerica@yahoo.com, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. And if you have a story or a journey to tell everybody, and you want your voice heard, please submit your stories to TROA submissions at yahoo.com. I will vet through these stories. I read through them, guys, to see if they're legitimate, because unfortunately there are those scammers out there, and these scammers are getting more creative by the day. So be careful. If I believe it's a legitimate story, I will reach out to you via email. We'll get your story heard on the show. Because remember, everybody, it's your voice, your story that's going to help shape this new world we're coming into, and your voice matters. So don't ever forget that. With that, Derek Johnson is in the house. I'm super excited to hear what he has to say. How are you, my friend? What's up?
Just driving across America.
Dude, you you should know this by the back of your hand. You travel across America all the time, and you do all the driving. You don't necessarily fly, right? You always drive.
I'll fly when I need to, but most of the time I've got multiple stops, so I just drive, and uh, I've driven across the country so many times that I don't even need a GPS anymore. I know every city and uh, you know every turn, every stop, wherever.
Well, see, that's what I'm saying. You should know by memorize it like the back of your hand. So that's awesome. How was your trip? How did it go? I know you had a conference out there.
Well, for an old country cowboy, I actually love Long Island. I don't know about New York City, but anything's fun to get to do something like that. So the people are good up there, pretty cool. Um, I got to see the Hamptons and Sag Harbor and a lot of cool places. Froze my rear end off, but other than that, I always go prepared, so I didn't freeze too much.
Well, I'm glad you have had a good time and safe travels, my friend. Drive safe. Are you on the road now, or did you pull over to where you can talk?
Yeah, I pulled over. I I made sure to get out of Knoxville, Tennessee, though, because I was afraid all that ugly Tennessee orange would rub off on me. So I got out of Knoxville, but I'm headed west. But I did pull over.
Well, sweet, safe travel, sweetie. Well, I just was letting the audience know because, like I said, we're new now, live streaming over on X. I'm looking at it right now. We're live. I see it. Rumble, we've been doing for a little bit now, but I kind of let them know how we kind of roll here with you. I just let you kind of do your thing because you tie everything together every time you come onto the show, how things are happening, and you just walk us through the whole journey, right? So we know there's a ton happening, Derek, and again, it's all laws and orders, executive orders, and the operation. So if you would, because we're seeing a lot of the narratives out there being flipped around from what happened on Saturday, the attempted assassination again on our great president. And then, of course, we have, people are all upset because it's like nothing even happened. They go into the whole king and queen dinner and all this stuff. And just kind of maybe tie everything in, Comey, he's now turned himself in. And I mean, there's just so much happening. I don't know where you want to start, but my friend, the floor is yours. You go for it.
Well, I think what most people are still struggling with, if they're struggling, um, I know patriots or people who call themselves awake probably get tired of hearing it, and that's okay. But that's where you're supposed to be because, just for example, this past weekend, speaking, I always say, hey, who's never heard me before? There's still people out there who haven't. Those are the people we're after. Um, and, a lot of lessons got learned this weekend. And like I say, I know I'm an asshole, but guess what? I'm like President Trump last week. If you ain't going to brag on me, I'll brag about myself. All right. So, what people need to realize is this is not a popularity contest. And they hear operation. So, that word has become now kind of like facts and truth and love. And it's just become watered down. Um, and I never would have dreamt this in history that we'd get in a place where people wouldn't appreciate not me necessarily as me, but military and military personnel. Um, but the word operations become watered down now. So I'm driving the force back around to like military government, which is exactly what it is. They're using a lot of hybrid warfare though, where you can take like military government, continuity operations, just layers that most people never knew existed. And that's the problem we have. But then there's too many moving voices out there. And I don't know if anybody's noticed on X, but X has shifted. They put a little thumbs down button in the comment boxes when you comment or when you see someone comment, they put a little thumbs down button. You click on it and it gives you a little pop up and you can report it, whatever the features are. I also have noticed that it shifts to where it's more Republicans in my feed. It was nothing but liberal, liberal, liberal. There's a few still trickle in there.
You love those.
Well, I do troll the heck out of them, but um, I can take the heat because I was put here as a plan. But what I'm trying to get people to comprehend, though, is the fact that, you know, just this past weekend, people saying, "Oh, if you got a voice out there, start a podcast." No, that's not what they want you to do. That we're actually with the 1798 Aliens Act being invoked. That ties in not only to see everybody thought it was just the Aliens Act. It's not. It's the 1798 Aliens and Seditions Act. The seditions portion back in the day, 1798, when it was passed, anybody who rode against the government or rode against military or rode against what was going on lawfully got arrested. And the last president to invoke that and to do so and the rest people was Abraham Lincoln. And that's how long it's been. So what they've got to do is reset the tone. It's like rediscipline, right? So treason, sedition, espionage, and all the way down. They're going to show certain things in the future And they're getting things, that's what they're getting things ready for. But they had to do it lawfully. You couldn't cut corners. You couldn't loophole anything. And that's why so many people are fatigued and, oh, I don't know. This, you just keep dragging this out. Blah, blah, blah. Well, guess what? You might want to go watch whenever I get the link, whenever I post it. Lieutenant Colonel Bosey got on his rattle last night and told people they could go F themselves. All right. And I'm like, you know what? I'm so glad that you lost your, people think he's losing. I'm like, no, that's a commander right there. That's a commander that I would run through a brick wall for. Right. And I did this past weekend. I'm like, the whole panel that they had up on the stage trying to field questions, not a single one's in the military, not a single one's ever been in the military, not a single one knows anything about Q. They can comprehend it. Just because you can comprehend something don't mean that makes you official, ladies and gentlemen. There's a danger in that. And this is where people don't listen. They hear, and then they hear drama, but they don't listen. What President Trump and this whole operation, this whole military government and draining the swamp is about is to reset everything and to drain it and restart with new voices. But it's going to be who they pick, because it has to be someone who reflects what they're doing. And I say they, I'm a part of it. I'm just a low man on the totem pole, but they, meaning the generals, the admirals, and the world leaders. So many people are not comprehending that. And it's really simple. President Trump said this in 2020, but see, 2020 overshadows everything because of what happened in 2020. The whole thing's an operation. The law outlines this. And see, that's where my books are, they're intellectual property. That's why no one can duplicate them. But at the same time, look where I signed them. I was contracted to write them, and I signed them with President Trump 43 days before he put the dash on his ball cap. And the reason why that's important is, yeah, there's laws and there's orders, but when you take the laws and the orders that President Trump invoked and all your irregular warfare, unconventional warfare, all the strategies and tactics of those, when you take all of what I've done and you put it together, it forms a blueprint of a military government. And a military government is an actual application. It's not some feel-good story. And oh no, it's an actual application. And the Constitution supports it. And because it's a military government, that means they're using the law of war manual. And when you go read the law of war manual, it'll tell you the law of war supersedes the law of the land. Well, the highest law of the land is the Constitution. Well, if the Constitution supports the military government, well, military government's using the what? Law of war manual, which is international. And also what we've had before the Constitution. And so the military government is your last line of basic defense before we would get to an all-out revolutionary war, civil war, utter chaos like that. And so many people are not applying that. And they're just still running to all this drama and all this trash and all these moving lips. And you don't need to. You need to know what the commander's working with. And then you gotta apply that. Look, comprehension skills, yes, comprehend it. Read it with your friends and your family. That's what you're supposed to do. But then you get all these guys, especially these civilian dudes, never been in the military, never been around anything military, don't know any kind of verbiage of anything, not one single word from one single sentence of one single paragraph of one single law, much less how they all tie together. And they can't even field a freaking question. And so I roasted some asses this weekend, if you want to go watch it on video. Because I'm like Tom Homan. Guess what? I don't give a what you think about me, because it's not a popularity contest. This is an operation. And you're going to be happy when it's all said and done. Those of you who still get a little butt hurt or say that I have an attitude, yeah, I probably do have an attitude, because I love my nation and I'm serving my nation at a different capacity. So once people learn that this thing is an application, it's not some feel-good story. There are laws that outline and put together that make a military government, and then the continuity government, the government in exile, the shadow puppet government, which is a hybrid. They use elements of both of those. And President Trump's validated all this. So it's like kind of funny today. Like I put up so I was like, the king gets 4 cannons, 21 rounds. but quote unquote Joe couldn't get 4 cannons, 21 rounds on Inauguration Day. And we still have people on Facebook going, oh, blah, blah. Never been in the military, want to argue with a military person about military regulations. So see, so it's like, I still have to be the rattle, right? Or the bull, whichever one you want to look at. So when you look at like things like the quote unquote assassination, well, here we are. This is 3 times now that I've explained this. And until you understand irregular warfare and unconventional warfare, well, you're not going to understand why they're doing this. So until someone seeks to comprehend the unconventional warfare and the word agitation changing from 1966 in our Special Operations Command to assassination in our new handbook 4 days before President Trump rolled down the escalator, that one word changed as an operational feature in a clandestine or covert operation, meaning we can use assassinations to look real, but actually not be real. I don't know what else I can do with people. But what's funny is, okay, the whole Butler, PA, the whole golf course, and then the Charlie Kirk thing, they showed you a 21-year-old barely wet behind the ears with pimples who can control his breath at 165 yards open sight and hit President Trump in the ear on one shot. Get the you-know-what out of here. Insert what Lieutenant Colonel Bosey said. Drop the F-bomb there. Get the you want to argue with an expert shooter, a retired military, and all of us military? You want to go toe-to-toe with us on that? Get the you-know-what out of here. Open sight, controlling breathing. And one shot, boop, gets the ear. Jesus, people. That's the stuff that I heard someone the other day say, we're doubling down on stupid now. All right, so now you move to the golf course. That was a little different, 500 yards or something crazy like that. You can't even see it 500 yards. Like not some random schmuck, right, who was already in a feature video on X way back with the Ukraine. So it shows you it's all central casting. All right. And then this thing. So now they show the quote unquote shooter indoors 50 feet away, and he can't 50 feet versus 200 yards and 165 yard people. I mean, I love the people, but I mean, we got to have some fun here in another manner. Like we have to go, okay, 50 feet. That's an 18-wheeler. But you're going to believe that a little pipsqueak barely wet behind the ears hit their targets on first shot at 165 yards and 200 yards? So the application, like the Charlie Kirk thing, is nobody talked about the blood, even though it wasn't real. No one talked about the blood. No one said, oh my God, why did they show this on TV? They've never shown stuff like this before. And then they showed the bullet hole, they showed the blood, and no one, even if they thought it was real, no one talked about that aspect. What did they do? Republicans and the conservatives, Charlie Kirk, that, right? And then the liberals over there are either silently celebrating or saying things like, well, he incited stuff. And then the Republicans did what? Oh, how dare you, you blah. Drama. No one focused on what they were supposed to focus on. One, it wasn't a real bullet hole. Two, a 30-06 has a 12-inch diameter. When it hits flesh, it has a 12-inch diameter with that piece of lead, meaning your little 4-inch neck wouldn't be there. And you want to argue with a retired veteran and all of us veterans and all of us expert shooters and all of us deer hunters, you want to argue with us. Well, you don't deserve what's going on right now if you want to argue with that. That's how we feel about it. And guess what? This is all operational, so it's all going to pan out, and it's all going to be true. It's all already done that. I've already been validated. If it was about me, I've been validated a trillion times, but it's because I'm operational. It's not because I'm some schmuck and some 20-year-old getting lucky here. I've got a reason why I'm here. I've got a reason why I was put here. Now, I'm a low man on the totem pole. But the Charlie Kirk thing shows that everybody's ready for what? Quick trials. It shows that people are desensitized because you've been watching Yellowstone, Breaking Bad, Ozark, and all these shows that show people getting their throats slit open it looks real and all this other stuff, you're ready for it because you can't separate a fake show, made up TV show versus what people thought was reality. So see, it now shows that people, well, they didn't focus on that part. So when they put a bad person up there that people think's bad, well, they ain't gonna have no problem with that, right? So voila. So all that, it just shows that again. And then there's things too where it resets Secret Service and all these other things because you have to have people paying attention to these things. Moving forward in the future, everybody has to find their so-called niche where you're interested in something. And everybody has to be aware of functions. Whatever they decide to keep, I don't know if they'll abolish anything, but let's just say they keep the CIA and they keep the FBI and they, of course, Secret Service pretty much always going to be there. But let's just say that. Well, then people have to be aware of the functions and operations of these facilities and these organizations. You can't just, like, I don't know the lady's name and I wouldn't dox someone like this. But I met some older ladies at a restaurant. They saw how tall I was. They asked me, and one thing led to another about, I said, well, here's a photo of me and my grandmother. And she was 4'11", and it just led to my service. And I got to red pill them. Well, one of them hated President Trump. The other one loved him. Two friends. One hates him, one loves him. And she told me, there's nothing you can do to change my mind. I said, oh, yeah, there is. Oh, yeah, there actually is something I can do to change her mind. But when they asked about Iran, well, what about Iran then? I said, with all due respect, I'm pretty sure you two remember Jimmy Carter. So then they did. They had to. They had to be close to 80. And I'm like, I don't know y'all remember Jimmy Carter. I said, a national emergency. The two ladies, God love even the woman that was a President Trump supporter, but I said, do you know what a national emergency is? No. I said, well, at least you're honest. But I said, how can you have an opinion on my commander in chief when you don't even know what a national emergency is? And that's just one application. We're not talking about national emergencies, proclamations, executive orders, treaties, the 4 ways military pairs with federal. We're not talking about anything else. We're not talking about how a bill gets passed, and we're not talking about the National Defense Authorization Act. We're not talking about any of the Department of War directives, Department of War instructions. We're not even talking. They don't even know what a national emergency is. So most of America is like that. Now, I wouldn't have called them dumb, and I sat there and smiled, and I said, well, I had one book left. After New York, I went out to my vehicle. I had one book left, one part one, and I went in there and signed it, and I said, read this. And she said, I'll be open to it. I said, read this. And she said, I'll gift it and donate it to her when I'm done. The one that was the President Trump supporter. Right. But she has a niece that's in ROTC and is going to be going active after that. I said, well, this is what your niece is going to be serving under. And I'd much rather be serving there in this time period than I would have when I served. And so, you never know what'll turn out after that. But so many people just will not simplify things. This is not complicated. It ain't meant to be complicated. And President Trump said in 2020, the cure cannot be bigger than the problem. But so many people don't even know how to identify the problem. Everybody's got an opinion. Just like this panel this past weekend, I'm like, every one of you up here can't even say, I don't know. No, you all have an opinion about something. And none of you are qualified. None of you been in the military. And just because you can comprehend Q don't mean a thing. That don't mean that you got assigned to that. And see, so I know all the people. I don't know all of them. There's no way to know all secret military. There's no way to know all of us, but we can tell each other when we're around each other because it's all operational. But, there's a huge difference in comprehension and talking to your friends and your family and having small groups and things like that versus blowing up on social media like some of these have. They couldn't even field one single question by the audience this weekend. And it's all on camera. And anyone who understands consistencies and inconsistencies will be able to see that there's some people that people follow out there, big name people, that actually made themselves look pretty bad. Because when I'm in the presence and I can show all the laws and orders, it's game over. Because this is what President Trump's working with. the generals and the admirals. So until people get a solid foundation, again, in military government and what that is, like all this midterm talk. So here's the weave. Now let's go to the midterm. Oh, we're not going. If we can't win the midterms, we're going to lose this nation. You have no freaking idea what's been going on if you're still saying that. The National Guard have been called up first time in history since 2018, 2020, 22, 24 to all the elections. First time in U.S. history, the National Guard cybersecurity teams have been activated for that duty. And what they do is they track all your forensics of the actual votes. We work on analog systems, not digital, which means we cannot be hacked. So we can tell who is and who isn't trying to add or subtract votes. There's also a safety net for this as well. Like if I went and tried to fit in my old uniform, which I can't, but if I could, if I went and got my old uniform and went down to the polls and stood there and tried to convince you to vote for someone, Republican or Democrat, don't matter. If I was trying to coerce you to vote or persuade you to vote, I'm violating federal law. Title 10, Section 592. So there's a safety net there, meaning like there has to be an absolute order for National Guard to be on that duty. That is the military government. When you hear all those other podcasters that don't really know what the heck they're talking about, but they'll say things like, oh, the military will handle the elections. We've already handling the elections. We're already doing that. And that's off executive order. Everybody knows it. That's a patriot. You know what I'm about to say. You're probably over there right now. Your lawn chair, your couch, your recliner, something. 13848, September the 12th, 2018. And then the National Guard, 2 months later, were already been called out for this duty. So see, it shows people don't, the ones struggling or the ones being naysayers out there, or the resurfaced never Trumpers, they jumped ship and didn't have to because they don't know what they're supposed to know. We're already in control of that. And because the law, not Derek Johnson, not Lieutenant Colonel Bosey, not Colonel Lennox, not anybody else that I know, because the law shows we're still in a military government, a partial military government, and a partial continuity government, because it shows that that's where you are. And it means the operation's still intact. So no matter what you see, Congress ain't doing what they're supposed to be doing right now because they're under a continuity of government. It ain't real for a reason because it's operational. Same thing with a quote unquote assassination attempt. It ain't real because we're still in the military government, continuity government operation by law. So it don't matter what happens. That's why President Trump's always saying central casting. He said that those two words more than you can. They played a clip last night on John Michael Chambers' show when we were on it, and it's a new clip someone's put, and he had to pause it and stop it because we were doing on a time schedule, and it was a long video. Central casting, central casting, central casting, central casting. He looks like central casting, central. Ladies and gentlemen, it's all that. You know,
He's
and then
telling
like
us,
photos.
right? He's telling us.
Well, the photos with the king. There's no Secret Service detail on the White House. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the most shot at president, but there's no Secret Service on top of the White House. So see, it's little details that people they do need to follow me, whether they like my attitude or not. They should love my attitude because I don't care about all the idiots out there.
I agree.
Right? But it's operational. And for the first time, I've been showing my badge. And see, what I've been showing people is this. I said, look, for 3.5 years now, you've heard me talk consistently. The same thing that everybody could read, and a lot of people have. There's a lot in this room right now who have. And they've gotten their friends and their family on board with what President Trump and the military, what we're working with militarily, right, lawfully. But for 3.5 years, everyone that could have read, and they're looking like they're looking out there, your friends and family that are going, this is bull, I don't know about it. I said, you could have been reading, and if you'd have just been reading what I have, because I was contracted to do it, but now I've been showing my retirement badge and also my Department of War. And I'm like, well, guess what? Now I also just bamboozled everybody in another manner, going, well, you could have been reading the whole time. And all those who doubted out there, guess what now? Here's my official badges with the official numbers and identification numbers. So now we're moving to the different phase. That's why X is doing what it's doing. And it's they're starting to hammer people more and more. President Trump's hammering all these people. People are going, I think he's just trolling. I think they're still a part of it. And this, that. Nah, it's hard to come back from being called a traitor. That if he'd have come to me, or anyone had come to me, even any operator, any kind of, and say, hey, we want you to play a role, and somewhere along the way they're going to call you a traitor, but then I'd be like, yeah, I think I'd rather just let me find another spot. Right. Now, traitor is a hard word to come back from in any kind of operation, because that means we'll probably have dirt on you. And see, like Marjorie Taylor Greene's a good example. She's already got like $35 million worth of money that came from trade in stock and insider trade. So see, people forget about those things. They get caught up on other things. Oh, she's a Christian. Oh, yeah, so's the whole world. You know, there's another word. Oh, I'm a Christian. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. You know, so there's so many people who are a mouth. They're self-appointed, and they're just a mouth. And too many people out there are falling to some of these people just because they look good, or they may deliver. You know why they deliver good? Because they're all civilians. They
Oh,
they
hang on,
don't have a
Derek.
reason.
Did you move because you're rubber banding?
No, didn't move.
You're sounding like a robot.
Well, it's I don't know, but
yeah, we're losing you.
Yeah, well, I haven't done anything. I'm in
Okay.
the same spot.
Okay, you came back. You sound better now. Go ahead.
Well,
All right.
again, there's too many people out there that just they want to mouth so bad, and it's misleading people is what it's doing. And it's just keeping people in the drama world. And the reason why some of these guys sound bad is because they have nothing to fight for, because they're civilians. And I know that the old days, the Patriots weren't always military, but most of them were. People forget that. They actually were. They were militia. But they were starting the country back then. Now we have one, and we have a bunch of people who don't know what to do and wouldn't know what to do. And if we did have a mandatory callback, they definitely wouldn't know what to do, because they wouldn't be being called back. So right now we're trying to get a handle on all that, and too many mouths are moving, and it's keeping people. So what will happen is I'll spill everything lawfully, and then someone else will go over here that's a popular name. Let's just say a civilian guy, and they're spending all this that's like real time. There's nothing real time. There's nothing. That's why I look like I'm, Lieutenant Colonel Bosey, all of us, but we look like we're at 3 to 6 days, 3 to 6 weeks, 3 to 6 months ahead. It's because that's what special operations is, and that's what President Trump's playbook is. And I've got the weave part of it where I weave it all together. That's all people need. And all this other is going to make sense once people go read and study a little bit of unconventional warfare and irregular warfare, but the way President Trump's using it. So he's got to, I'm teaching people how to think like me a little bit, because that's what the point is. We're supposed to elevate you, not enable you. Enablers tell you what you want to hear. Elevators tell you what you need to hear. And it don't always feel good sometimes. But guess what? I have commanders. So, it sounds like I'm always talking. I'm not always talking. I do a lot of listening. I do a lot of reading, a lot of listening. So when time I get to you, yeah, I'm spilling what I've done all my reading and listening to. And that's how the military works. And that's what you're watching right now. And the whole thing is to bring everything down, not bring it back up. And that's why the 1798 Aliens Act is so important, because it's got the seditions part to it. And that's why the First and Fifth Amendment's been mentioned in headline articles out there. Because no, you don't have your First and Fifth Amendments. You don't even have any of your Bill of Rights. The military government shows that. All right. Now, that don't typically have an effect on civilians, unless you're trying to be someone out there on a big podcast and you're spewing all this stuff that's like false to, a lot of people. So it typically only does apply to quote unquote journalists. But look at all these self-appointed quote unquote citizen journalists, right? So it's an application. And so what we're trying to do is bring it and say, look, they're trying to localize things. You need to learn your county commissioners. You need to learn your county seats. You need to learn everything about your county and then work your way to your state capital. You need to learn your state. That's what everything's going back to. It's more state oriented. And like President Trump said the other day, the only thing federal will be a few things, military being one of them, and there won't be much in the federal realm. And what's cool about that is that's actually more in your anti-federalist viewpoint back in the foundation and your Bill of Rights, because anti-federalists are the ones who presented the Bill of Rights to the Federalists. Now, the Federalists are going to have still a strong role, but it's going to be heavily military. When you go read the Federalist Papers, it's heavy about the people, you, being in control of your leaders, and then both of you, but you first, but both of you having control of the military. All right, it will be what you want, but we can't turn that over until you're educated on how that works and what that looks like. Because you can't also be going, oh well, I don't like, Jenny's out in the yard and she's shooting, lawn nuggets over at her neighbor over there, and I want to arrest her. You can't do that. You can't take the law in your hands in the wrong way. You have to be educated on the law again. Do you know what a lawn nugget is, by the way, Jenny? Did you know that?
No, but why don't you let us know?
It's a dog turd. That's what it is. What a lawn nugget
Okay,
is.
why didn't you say a piece of shit?
Because I try to colorful things up sometimes for the people out there, but so
that's a good one. So what say it again? A log nugget?
a lawn nugget, like a lawn.
Lawn nugget. Okay. I'm gonna
Yeah.
start using that one.
Yeah. So, other than that, like, it's going to be rapid fire because look at where you are today. Look how much you've seen in 9 years. Think about it. I mean, really think about it. Everybody wakes up. Whatever time you wake up, what do? You look at your phone to see what President Trump has said or posted. And you do it all throughout the day when you get a break, or if you're retired, you're probably constantly doing it. Right? You're constantly hitting the update or pulling your phone down where to update. Then when you go to bed at night, you're going to bed to President Donald John Trump, right? Third world countries are doing the President Trump dance, right? With everybody on the planet is intact and in tune with what has President Trump said, what has he done, right? But if you look at the past 9 years, all these people out there frantic or fearful and all this other stuff, it's like they're not looking at the 9 years because they don't know the laws and orders. They don't even know. They have no idea what a military government is. They don't know it's lawful. They don't know anything about that. They don't even know the regular government. But 9 years, quote unquote Joe and quote unquote Kamala and all that. So for the people that thought 21 to 2025 was real, there's not one single law in place from 21 to 25 that people thought was real, even though it's all been terminated because it never existed. And President Trump's already posted that, validated that, never existed. And the 45-47 visual also, it's all there, right? But for the people that thought they saw that, well, the Federal Register, you posted the Federal Register, yeah, because it's all they had to. If they didn't, you see if they didn't do anything that was normal and protocol, then your answer would be there. You go to the Federal Register, you go, holy crap, where's 21 to 25? Where's all the executive orders posted? Where are they? So see, if you reverse that, you have your answer. But when people go, well, there's the executive, I'm like, yeah, because they had to. If you would look back at the operation side of things and not look at what you think is the norm, I can show you. Because here's the termination, never existed. All 4 years never existed. So if you look at that angle from an operational standpoint, 21 to 25, not a single law was in an offense or a defense, depending on what President Trump did in 21 to 2017. I mean, 2017 to 2021, but depending on what he did there, nothing that quote unquote Joe did was going in and going, we got to abolish all this stuff that happened from 2017 to 2021. Because if President Trump can abolish all 4 years, why couldn't, quote unquote, Joe? He could have if he was real. Now, it would have been chaos because the nations that love President Trump and cut deals with President Trump, if that would have been real, the people who loved him and cut good deals with him, if that would have been ripped out from under them, then they would have been, maybe that's how wars are started. That's how conflicts are started. So if people would understand the functions of this, if President Trump can abolish 4 years worth, any president can. They've never done that before because that's part of their whole game. And see, when our founders founded our nation, when you read the Constitution, that's why I tell people, I'll whoop your ass with the Constitution. Don't bring up the Constitution as your crutch. That's the worst thing you can do. The Constitution is just a prescription. It says what Congress is to do, what the executive branches do, what the judicial branches do. Don't use the Constitution if you don't know it. That's the worst thing that the Democrats and liberals especially can bring up. But we got to protect the Constitution. It's a prescription. So if we got to protect it, yeah, guess what? You're absolutely right. And we are doing that. Article 2, Section 1, Clause 1 of the Constitution. It says the president's term is to be 4 years in a term. Nowhere in the Constitution does it say term limits. Nowhere in the Constitution does it say that the Congress is to put term limits on the president. So why did they violate the Constitution in 1951 in doing so? Our founders, James Madison, the man who wrote the whole Constitution, he wrote half of the Federalist Papers on his own, which were the promotion papers of the Constitution. That's what they took around to the people between September the 17th, 1787, and March the 4th, our first inauguration date in history, 1789. They took these Federalist Papers around the people and said, hey, it's like the Midnight Rider Bible, and the Midnight Rider rides again. Here's what President Trump's doing. This is what the 45-47 is. You're right here, all along the way. Here's where you are. Here's where you are. Here's where you are. Well, that's what they did with the Federalist Papers. They took them all to people back then and said, here's what the Constitution is. Here's what you've had in the past. Here's why you don't want that. Here's why you do want this. And there was promotion papers. And that's why the Constitution was enacted on March the 4th, 1789, even though it was written way back in September 17th, 1787. Those promotion papers. James Madison, the sole author of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, he wrote half of those solo, another portion of them, major portion of them, as a co-writer. There was only a few he wasn't on. And then Alexander Hamilton was another writer of those. Both of those gentlemen wrote that a president should serve as a king. And then they went in and they separated the difference in a monarchy king, though, and a constitutional republic king. The constitutional republic king would be the people voting the president in as many times as the people wanted to vote him in, not the king self-appointing himself and being a dictator. So that's our founders who wrote that. So what you've all seen in your lifetime, especially if you're over 40 years old, what you've seen in your lifetime has not remotely been close to what it's supposed to look like. That's why it's been topsy-turvy. And you'd have a president either 4 or 8 years. In 4 or 8 years. And then what did they always do? Drastic changes in the first 2 or 3 years or 4 years, depending on if they were a second-term president or not. But they already knew which one was going to be. That's why it's been so chaos. And that's why all President Trump had to do, even if he'd have been a regular president, which he's not, but all he would have had to do is enforce the law. But see, if he'd have just been a regular and this wouldn't have been a military operation, then the deep state, the old deep state, would have capsized everything in a different manner anyway and got right back in control of it. That's why it's so obvious when people understand the applications, that it is so obvious to see that, quote unquote, Joe didn't do anything. If President Trump's a king, a dictator, Nazi, and destroying everything, then when and if that would have been real, and it wasn't, but since you've already witnessed it, if that would have been real, they should have abolished everything that President Trump did from 2017 to 2021 to make him restart all over if they thought he had a chance as a real president the next time around. This is why this stuff is so simple, because that didn't happen. And all the President Trump's executive orders to do with the military and all the Title 10 and Title 32 orders, from 2017 to 21 that carried through those 4 years, quote unquote, Joe couldn't abolish that. And see, this is why the military veterans out there, they're so quiet. The ones that came after me when they thought, quote unquote, Joe was real, they mighty quiet now. They got some chaffed asses. They way down in them holes now. There's only a few of them. But see, this is why I told them, those guys, I said, hey, you better be careful. All this bull crap, oh, you didn't serve long enough to know what you're talking about. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, well, guess what? I didn't serve as long as you, but I know more than you, because how is it that a president never had a Title 10 order or Title 32? So look, if you look at the Texas border, look at the that's a fun one. It showed, quote unquote, Joe on paper abolished Proclamation 9844. He terminated it, which was President Trump's invocation order to the southern border, Title 10, Section 12302. Well, why would, quote unquote, Joe turn around and do an additional troops to the border if he terminated the foundational order? That don't make sense. You have to have a foundational order. Why would he be sending additional troops, 2,500 troops to the border, if he terminated the foundational? See, and that's the only Title 10 that, quote unquote, Joe had. The whole 4 years was an additional. So it's not really a Title 10 order. It's a Title 10 addition. It's not an order. It's a order, but it's not a foundational order. It's an additional. So why would he terminate the foundational order, the activation of the troops, which called up the National Guard, a presidential call up? Why would you terminate the presidential call up? You can't have an additional order if the foundational call up is terminated, which now you plug in President Trump's December the 2nd, 2025 post where he said all executive actions by Joe Biden's been terminated for 4 years. Never, and he put in there no legal effect. And if you go look that up in Latin, a lot of law works in Latin and different things. So Black's Law Dictionary, etc. When you go look up the term no legal effect in Latin, it means void ab initio, and that translates to never existed. So see, when you apply little things like that, it shows you none of this is real. President Trump's real, but it's military government. And that's why I say in 2017 to 2021 was the resetting of the legislative branch. All your unique laws and orders were put into place. 21 to 25 was your resetting of your executive branch. That's why it looked the way it did. That was a government in exile, puppet government, shadow government, and all that. Reconstitution of the executive branch. And then right now, 2025 to 2029 is a resetting of the judiciary branch. And once you learn that application of the military government portion, it'll make sense that they had to put President Trump in visually 4 years, start making unique laws and orders, which they didn't have to make a whole lot. All they had to do was just write a few executive orders to child trafficking, which they encompass all trafficking, which would get into your subterranean warfare. President Trump's the first ever to make a strategy for subterranean warfare. So all these unique things that he put into place, then you pull him back 4 years lawfully via military government to where he still has control of the military. That's what a military government is. That's what a government in exile is. He has control of the military. And then they made people think that, quote unquote, Joe was real. So that was President Trump's sacrifice. And even though he's back here really in operations, really your sitting president, he was willing to sit back here and make the world think sit back here full of and we were heavy and it's all over. And that will it'll get a 12 versus an 8. And it's so genius.
Your rubber band.
I don't know what to tell you. I mean,
me on my Telegram. Raise your hand. Okay, Joe. Derek, hear me.
And I haven't moved, so I don't know.
Yeah, word. Weird. Keep
Um,
talking though. Keep going.
yeah, I don't
Okay,
know.
there you go. Well, you're good now. Go for it.
I have no idea. I mean, I hadn't
They don't.
moved one bit, but
They don't like what you're saying. They're zapping you. You're over the target, my friend. Keep cooking.
they like what I'm saying, but um, they had to give him 12 years because when you can do 12 lawfully versus 8 lawfully, it's just works better. You get to completely drain the swamp, and that's why it's been rapid fire though. That's why people are getting fatigued because if they would just simplify things, but so many people are listening to a bunch of schmucks who are civilians who don't know their head from a hole in the ground. And then, guys like me, I have a rough attitude, but it's because I'm operational. I'm not a podcaster. I'm not an influencer. I've been put here for this. It's a cyber warfare. But someone like me has to be able to get there and whack. It's like a whack-a-mole, that little game you used to play in the arcades where the little dude pops up and you hit him. Well, that's what we're having to do to all these idiots out there because they're misleading so many people with just trash and garbage they're not qualified to talk about. And that's what a lot of people are doing. They're listening to me, but they're listening to a bunch of other schmucks who are not qualified. They've never been in this. They can't think like this. They don't think like this. And guys like me hate it because I can help you, but you got to help yourself. You got to meet us in the middle. So it's like President Trump. What they're doing on the top, it had to be done on the top down federally. They had to clean it out. And when it works its way down the state, well, it's better to work it from the federal down to the state levels and the local levels versus what our founders did, because our founders created this. We have the creation now, but we have people who don't even want to read the creation, don't want to comprehend it. And so in order for President Trump and them to work their way down to the, like where he said, we're giving the power back to the people. Well, like at these events I've been going to, they're talking about shit that don't even matter. Aliens and this and that. And I got abducted and that, yeah. Just shit that don't matter. Right. It has nothing to do with anything.
I call it the surface bullshit.
Well, that ain't even surface, boy. That's just like, what the, this, I'm like, I sat there, I'm like, on Sunday, I'm like, it's been 2 days now. We're at this thing. I said, only one of you mentioned President Trump's name once. That's it. I said, I'm the only one. I'm like, you don't even know what you're here for. So I know people, they're like, I know they were talking bad about me at a hotel and everywhere else. I know they were, but that's all right. I'm like Tom Homan. That's what we're here for. I'm operational. They're not. And when I pull them badges out now, I'm like, yep, yeah, you guys thought it was all speculation, but now guess what? Here it is, because we're in a new phase, and it's time to start kicking ass and taking names with all these podcasters out there and influencers too. It's time. It's time people get tough. All right. When President Trump comes down, we can't have all these people out there going, oh, well, I don't know about that. No, you can do the whole time in order to get the power. Your laws on simple. I mean, you got to take that power back. But the power back to the people. Let's still some. I know a lot of people vote for it, yes. But as far as the application of laws, there's a lot of people that yeah, I don't know. Now it'll sustain abolished and all things revoked. This will sustain for about 60 or 70 years, just as it is, which that won't be any of us sitting here talking. That'll be the next layer down of children and grandchildren. But if you care about them, then we have got to get to them and say, this is how the law works. This is how legislation works. This is how the foundation is. This is how it was. And this is what it was supposed to look like. And all this other crap out there about midterms and this term and that term, it was always supposed to be what the people wanted and who the people wanted and how long they wanted them there was up to the people, not term limits. And that's why President Trump brought the dash and all that, into view. And that's why he's talking about he calls it the third term. It would actually be the fourth term by law. But it will be a third term by an actual constitutional looking government, even though the first three really haven't been. It's all been a military government. It's not constitutional government. It's supported by the Constitution, but it's not a constitutional government. That's why everybody complaining about Congress is wasting their time and energy. They are under a partial continuity government. And until that is completely revoked, and until President Trump stops using the words restoration and occupied country and occupied territory, until he stops all the law war manual terms, we're still in it. And you should be happy. And people will be. We're not going to play everything forever. It's working up to Comey. He talked about Comey's an easy one. Like, look at 19 was the average number of people who watched.
You're up again.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, right here. Like everywhere. I'm sorry. It's like run for a hot second, and then you come back in and you sound great.
I don't think it's. I think it may be overloaded. Is what I think it may be.
Okay, you sound great now. You sound good now.
So when you look, if people will look at this with Comey, so I had 9 people watching me on my video that went viral. Well, the Department of War intercepts those things. I've already got that confirmation. They intercept it because they have control of media. People are focused too much on media. Media are under a wartime code. 47 United States Code, which is 1934. Came right now.
Okay, you're right. And I know they're today. He's about you guys. Hang tight. And those of you that want to smack over the chat, you know me, I'll move you out of here. So we'll see the alligator, and yeah, I'll see more of those negative nasty in my comments. So if you guys want to smack to come up whenever we do comments, if you're agitated, so are gone. So go ahead, Derek. Wait, he was there. He's gonna again, but Rumble, you can hear him okay. X sounds like you can hear okay. Telegram, it looks like you guys gave me a few hands up, so